Hey, folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to a Friday edition of the Watchman Newscast live stream. As we head into the weekend, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is about to start for the Jewish people, my friends in Israel, around the world. So I wish you all an easy fast as you head into this 10 days. This is the last day of the Days of Awe. Started with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Now you have Yom Kippur. Then the Jewish people will head into Sukkot, which is really a festive holiday after Yom Kippur, which is obviously very solemn. So I wanted to give all of our Jewish and Israeli viewers a shout out around the world. And what a time to observe Yom Kippur. The first time I just read this morning, and it's really true because Yom Kippur last year was before October 7th, before the massacre. The first time that Israel has been at war on Yom Kippur since 1973, since the Yom Kippur War. So, folks, again, we live in historic times for sure, and it's hard to believe, I'm sure, for many watching, that the Yom Kippur War was 50 years ago. But let's break down what we have right now. And we've got to discuss today Russia and Iran and what's happening there. You might have seen, and this kind of came out of left field in a bit because I didn't see this announced anywhere, but it happened today. I'm not sure if it was impromptu or kind of a spontaneous meeting, but meet they did. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, met his Iranian counterpart, Masoud Pezeshkian, on the sidelines of a conference for Central Asian nations held in Turkmenistan. Now, Putin and Pezeshkian, the timing of this, obviously, is no coincidence. For them to come together, literally, folks, as any day now, Israel may strike Iran. I mean, this could be at the doorstep. Iran, obviously, just to review real quick in case you were asleep, about 10 days ago, Iran fired the largest ballistic missile attack or carried out the largest ballistic missile attack in military history, launching some 200 ballistic missiles at Israel, blanketing the entire nation miraculously. And I do mean miraculously, no one was killed and there was minimal damage in Israel. And now Israel says, look, we can't countenance this. We have to respond. And remember, this is the second direct Iranian missile attack against Israel in the past 6 months alone. April 2024, 300 projectiles fired at Israel. Again, miracle. And I don't use that word lightly. When 99% of those projectiles back in April were intercepted, no Israelis killed, no serious damage. Miraculous. Nonetheless, Israel cannot accept this, and Israel must respond. And we've been saying, look, this could be a golden opportunity for Israel to, yes, do the world a favor and strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Folks, everything is on the table right now. In case you missed my interview with Jonathan Shanzer yesterday here on the newscast, be sure to check that out. Now, it's in our archives. Everything we post, or everything we do, is posted, I should say, in our archives. Just go to newscasts on the homepage. It's right there. Jonathan Shanzer, one of the world's leading Middle East analysts, no doubt, for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in D.C., he laid out the potential scenarios for Israeli strikes against Iran. Are Iran's leaders fair game? The nuclear facilities, the oil infrastructure, military targets, targets belonging to, of course, Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, all on the table. I strongly encourage you to watch that interview from yesterday with Jonathan Shanzer. And hey, while you're there, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted here on the channel. We just passed 1 million subscribers for such a time as this. We're just honored and thankful to God, thankful to all of you for making that happen. And I was saying, look, we wanted to do it by the new year. I was thinking December 31st. We did do it on the new year. We did it on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. We actually hit 1 million subscribers. So I think that was a little wink from God there for sure. But we'd love for you to be here every day as watchmen and women on the wall and as subscribers with us. But okay, let's break down Russia and Iran. Israel has to respond. Israel's going to respond to these Iranian provocations. And Israel, quite literally, is going to respond any day now. So Russia, Vladimir Putin, picks this time of all times to openly meet with and embrace Iran's president, to openly meet with and embrace the president of a nation that is committed to wiping Israel off of the map. Just as Israel is about to carry out what may be an historic attack against Iran, and who knows what it's going to look like. I can tell you that the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, is trying to restrain Israel at every turn. Surprise, surprise. But Putin, folks, clearly to me is sending a message. He's showing you exactly, and he's showing the world, and Israel chief among them, exactly where he stands. He will not be happy, and that's an understatement, if Israel strikes Iran in any capacity, certainly not Iran's nuclear facilities. And it was a very warm embrace today. I'll just read a little bit of this from you. Just reading this straight off my phone about what was said. Here's what Putin said during what's been called a landmark meeting by the Russian media between he and Pezeshkian today. And remember, Pezeshkian's only been the Iranian president for a few months. And by the way, key point here, Pezeshkian is the messenger. I don't want to call him an errand boy, but listen, at the end of the day, Iran's supreme leader, that's Ayatollah Khamenei, he makes the decisions. Pezeshkian is kind of the regime's face to the world. Iran's president, subservient to the supreme leader, plays that role. They do the international junkets. You'll see him at the UN. You'll see them meeting with world leaders, with diplomats. They transmit the supreme leader's message to the world, oftentimes with a kinder, gentler face than the supreme leader. But Pezeshkian met with Putin, and whatever Pezeshkian said was delivered directly from Ayatollah Khamenei. He is a messenger in that sense. And Putin liked what he was hearing. Here's what good old Vlad said, quote, "We are actively working together in the international arena, and our key point here, our assessments of events taking place in the world are often very close," Putin said of Russia and Iran. Now, does that mean his assessment of what's taking place in the Middle East also lines up with Iran's? I think so. Listen, over the past 2.5 years in particular, Russia's foreign ministry has just levied harsh statements against Israel. Every time Israel carries out a strike against Iranian assets in Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, wherever, Russia's foreign ministry is jumping all over Israel with some very incendiary press releases and statements. So that's one piece to this. The other piece is, Jesus said, by their fruits you will know them. What are the fruits of Vladimir Putin when it comes to his alliances? He is openly aligned with Iran, Hezbollah, and the Assad regime in Syria, arguably, along with Hamas, the three greatest enemies of the Jewish state. So what does Israel expect? I mean, Israel enjoyed for about 30 years there. It was a good run, decent relations with Russia. Obviously, some 1 million Russians moved to Israel after the wall fell, after the Soviet Union collapsed. But Vladimir Putin is making very clear where he stands now. And he has made a choice. And he has chosen the Iranian axis. And I think Israelis at this point have their eyes wide open to this. And a few years ago, I'd say 2018, 2017, I'd be in Israel. I'd be meeting with former Israeli officials, intel types, military types, political types. And they would all say, look, you know, Russia's not a big concern. But I'd say, guys, look, Russia's at your doorstep. They're in Syria, thousands of Russian troops. They could effectively control the airspace above Syria. That could create big problems for you. They're aligned, are the Russians, with Iran, with Hezbollah, with the Assad regime. Presumably, they're sharing intelligence with these terrorist forces. And I also argued, I believe correctly, that this was the first time that we've seen a nuclear power, Russia, nuclear weapons power, openly aligned with terrorist organizations. Now, I guess the closest parallel would be the Taliban and the Pakistani intelligence services and military. But this was another level. Hezbollah, the Iranian regime, I mean, shoulder to shoulder with Russian soldiers on the battlefield. And that's a alarming thought. I shared this with Israelis 2018, 2017, and they saw it all developing. These are some of the smartest people in the world. But they were like, look, taking pretty much trying to take a more positive view. Look, we think that Russia, it may be actually a good thing that they're in Syria because they can rein Assad in, they can rein Iran in and exert influence there. Well, that's not panning out. I think if that was the case, which I don't think it was before February 2022, once Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia became very desperate for some good, reliable friends. And the Iranian regime was waiting in the wings with arms wide open, and Iran has supplied short-range ballistic missiles, just countless attack drones that Russia is using in Ukraine. So what you have now is a full-blown alliance. I mean, they talked today. We're solidifying this thing. Pezeshkian and Putin talked about this in the meeting. We're solidifying this alliance across all spheres: military, economic, cultural, industry, trade, all of it. Russia and Iran are cleaving closer and closer together. And I believe that's only going to increase that cozy relationship. And there's a few things here. The prophetic factor, which I know you're waiting for me to discuss and which we will get to. Because when you see Russia, the leaders of Russia and Iran meeting on the verge of a climactic showdown between, not climactic, but a showdown nonetheless between Israel and Iran, if you're a Bible prophecy buff, your sensors are going off right now. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But just in a purely, in the natural, I guess you would say, it's not a shock to me that Iran is now cleaving closer to Russia, because we've said, look, as Iran's ring of fire unravels, and oh, it is unraveling. Hamas has been smashed. Hezbollah's on its heels. So that entire ring of strategy, a ring of fire strategy, I should say, that Iran cultivated over decades, really, is now blowing up literally in their faces. So I've said over the past few weeks, expect Iran to say, you know what? Our proxy strategy, it was great while it lasted, but now it's kind of unraveling, and it's just not reliable enough. What we need is to solidify our relationships with nation states, in particular, nuclear-armed nation states. Hello, Russia. And that relationship was already blossoming. Maybe blossoming is not the right word to use for that relationship, but it was growing. We'll just say that. China, Iran already has this, I believe it's 25 years, it's either a 20 or 25-year agreement they signed in 2021 or 2022. Iran and China have this cooperation agreement. Iran supplies China with cheap oil and gas, and China supplies Iran with all manner of things in return. I assume one of those would be military hardware, perhaps some nuclear know-how, who knows? And then you will see, I should say, Iran and Turkey coming closer together. Now, it's interesting. In that interview I mentioned yesterday with Jonathan Chanzer, we discussed this because Turkey is kind of sees itself as the Sunni superpower, or they'd like to be. They'd like to revive that Ottoman Caliphate, the seat of which was in Istanbul. And Erdogan, the demagogue who leads Turkey now, would like to lead a revived Islamic caliphate. If you don't know what a caliphate is, funny word, I know. It's basically a union of all Islamic nations united under one leader called the Caliph. Erdogan would love to be that leader. That's on the Sunni side. On the Shia side, of course, Iran is the top dog. So on one hand, you could say, wow, Iran and Turkey are kind of vying for supremacy in the Islamic world. But on the other hand, and perhaps maybe that would happen one day, not in a military sense, but just influence sense. But I'll tell you, as you see Israel, as you see Turkey coming against Israel, Iran, their rhetoric mirrors each other. I mean, you could give me a quote. You could take a quote from Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish leader. Just give me a few quotes of him talking about Israel. Don't tell me who said it. Just give me the quotes. And you'd be hard-pressed not to say, wow, that was the leader of Hamas, or that quote must be from the leader of Hezbollah or the Ayatollah in Iran. No. Or I should say, yes. They're certainly engaging in that kind of rhetoric as well, calling Israel a terrorist state, comparing Benjamin Netanyahu to Hitler, saying that Israel wants to invade Turkey. The list goes on. It's calling for a global alliance and an Islamic alliance against Israel, to come against Israel. Talk about prophetic overtones. But no, it would be revealed if you put the name to the quote that the one who said it was none other than the leader of a NATO member nation with the second largest military in the NATO alliance. We're talking, yes, about Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So look for Iran and Turkey to come together more closely with Russia as well. It's no coincidence that those three leaders are meeting on the regular, leaders of Russia, Turkey, and Iran. Three nations that have really been at each other's throats over the centuries until fairly recently. And I believe they will align. And here it is, prophetically. Another funny term, the war of Gog and Magog. You might say, huh? Read the book of Ezekiel this weekend, chapters 38 and 39. Ezekiel outlines in very stark detail a latter days confederation, latter TTER, last days confederation that will come against Israel, will march against Israel. Persia, which is modern day Iran, is named very explicitly. No mistaking that. Most people believe Turkey absolutely will be a part of it. Beth Togarmah, Gomer, these were historic names, ancient names for modern day Turkey. Meshech, Tubal, Rosh. I believe this describes Russia, and this leader Gog is going to hail from Russia. Many people disagree. It's not a salvation issue. We're allowed to disagree on this, so it's all good. Well, it's all bad, but it's okay that we disagree, I should say. Not a salvation issue. Many people have said to me, Eric, I disagree. Russia will not be involved. It won't be a part of that invasion force. Turkey is actually going to lead the way. And many believe, and I don't disagree with this, that Iran may kind of limp into this confederation severely weakened. And perhaps we're seeing that unfold right now, right? Where they're going to need some heavy hitters in their corner. Russia, Turkey, nation states with large, formidable militaries. We see Hamas and Hezbollah struggling massively now. Iran may be about to get its comeuppance as well. Who knows what Israel's going to do? And Israel's more than justified to do it. And Israel right now, as we said, it's a golden opportunity to do it. With Hamas and Hezbollah, that was Iran's insurance policy, pretty much off the chessboard in terms of any considerable massive response like Israel would have faced. Hey, a year ago, October 6th, 2023, if Israel struck Iran in any way, certainly Iran's nuclear facilities, Hamas and Hezbollah would have rained probably tens of thousands of rockets upon Israel right away. And Israel, reminder, the size of the state of New Jersey, tiny nation, easy to blanket with missiles, but for Iron Dome and David's Sling and the Arrow missile defense system, these incredible missile defense systems Israel has. And by the way, Iron Beam, the laser-based defense system, will soon be available as well, reportedly. Then there's the divine Iron Dome, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that was the true factor in Israel miraculously averting major carnage last week and back in April with those Iranian ballistic missile attacks. But Hamas and Hezbollah, that option for Iran, that's kind of off the chessboard now. Those two rings on the ring of fire are dissolving before their eyes. And now it seems that Israel has a clear path to Tehran, relatively clear path. And Iran, the regime, has never been more vulnerable. It seems to me that if you have an existential threat gathering in Iran in terms of their nuclear program, then perhaps now would be a pretty darn good time to take care of that. And the world will weep and gnash its teeth in the short term, and later on it will thank Israel, just as it did in 1981 when Israel took out Saddam Hussein's reactor in Iraq, and just as it did in 2007 when Israel took out Bashar al-Assad's reactor. And the world, again, gnashed its teeth and castigated Israel. How dare you, you warmongers? Well, I think the world looks a lot better right now without a nuclear-armed Iraq and a nuclear-armed Syria, needless to say. And the same goes for Iran. Now, side note, today, Kamala Harris said, she was meeting with Jewish leaders on the eve of Yom Kippur, and she said, I'll never let Iran go nuclear. Everything's on the table. Does anyone watching this right now truly believe her or take her at her word? Israel doesn't, I can tell you that. And Joe Biden said the same in 2022. We'll never let Iran go nuclear. And then last week, though, when this subject was broached, Biden said, no, Israel shouldn't strike Iran's nuclear facilities. They shouldn't do that. Whereas Donald Trump last week said, yeah, you should probably do that. That's the biggest crisis facing us right now, not just Israel, but the world. A nuclear-armed Iran that's working on intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. Those ICBMs are developed for one reason and one reason only, to be mounted with a nuclear warhead. That's it. And they do what their name says. They're designed to travel across continents, across oceans. Those ICBMs are not for Israel. They're not for Saudi Arabia. They're not even for Europe. They're for the great Satan, in Iran's words, the United States. So this is a world problem. And a nuclear-armed Iran, if you want to say, well, just let them get the bomb, they won't actually use it. Really? I bring you the 1980s. Wrap your head around this, folks. And we want to talk about Russia a bit more. But real quick, a quick aside here. The Iran-Iraq War, a very bloody affair in the 1980s. During that war, the Iranian, 1 million people killed overall in that war. During that war, the Iranian regime sent thousands, some say tens of thousands, of young Iranian boys, as young as 9, 10, 11 years old, their best and brightest. They put plastic keys around their necks and told them, my son, these are the keys to paradise. And if you go and clear that minefield, tonight you'll be in heaven with Allah. So thousands of these young Iranian boys, brainwashed, fanaticized, if that's a word, by Iran's mullahs, the same ayatollahs who run that country today, went to their deaths, ran, blew themselves up, and cleared minefields. You're telling me a regime with that little regard for human life would not use the bomb? I mean, let's get serious. Back in 2001, 2002, Hashemi Rafsanjani, the former Iranian president, said Israel is a one-bomb country. He's probably referring to the Tel Aviv metropolitan area. Some 75% roughly of the Israeli population lives in and around that Tel Aviv metro area, which is pretty large, hugging the Mediterranean coast. But Rafsanjani said, look, one bomb and they cease to exist as a nation. He said, whereas Iran's a very big nation, large geographically, over 70 million people, very young population, we could survive an Israeli nuclear counterstrike. That was his calculus. And he's thinking, look, we lose 40 million people. We've still got over 30 million more. We can rebuild. And if we eliminate the hated Zionist entity, we're the toast. We're the lions of the Islamic world forever. It's insane, but this is how they think. And these kind of people wielding the world's deadliest weapon, weapons, I should say, probably ain't good, you know? And there's the other factor that even if Iran doesn't use the bomb, the threat that it would use the bomb, a nuclear umbrella of sorts for the proxies, for the ring of fire. So the next time Hezbollah barrages northern Israel with rockets, and by the way, Hezbollah fired a drone on the eve of Yom Kippur just a few hours ago that struck an apartment building in Herzliya. That's pretty far. It's just north of Tel Aviv. It's pretty deep along the coast. Thankfully, it was a retirement home. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but keep Israel in your prayers this weekend. Because look, it's a day of atonement, and no Israelis working on Yom Kippur tomorrow, but that doesn't stop the terrorists. So let's pray this weekend for, again, that divine hedge of protection, that divine Iron Dome to surround Israel. But the next time Hezbollah or the Houthis or the militias in Iraq and Syria, or even the Assad regime in Syria, or even Iran itself fires a rocket or missile barrage at Israel, and Israel wants to respond, perhaps a nuclear-armed Iran would say, not so fast. If you dare, Zionists, fire missiles at us, we may just have to unleash a nuclear response. So no Israeli would rest easy at night, essentially, is what I'm saying, knowing that your greatest adversary, which is sworn to wiping you off the map, would have the capability to do just that if it acquired nuclear weapons. And again, the Russia factor in this. I found this meeting very interesting with Putin. And by the way, Ezekiel 38:39, the war of Gog and Magog, I recommend you read it over the weekend. I'm not no spoiler alert here if you haven't read it. If you have read it, you have a smile on your face because you know how this ends. This war where all these nations come against Israel. But suffice it to say, Israel is still standing after the war of Gog and Magog with some very big help from a very big divine friend, the God of Israel. So you'll want to read that. But in the meantime, this meeting today between Putin and Pezeshkian, you have to wonder behind the scenes. Okay, I've said this all along. If Iran is supplying Russia with ballistic missiles, with drones, what is Iran getting in return? Clearly, folks, this is a quid pro quo relationship. Iran's not doing this out of the goodness of their black hearts, because there is no goodness in this regime's heart. Not the people of Iran, who are the biggest victims of the regime, but the regime itself. They're not doing this out of brotherly kindness and compassion, needless to say. So what are they getting in return? Could one element be that Russia will help Iran get to the finish line with its nuclear program? A few years ago, I would have said, no way. Putin's not that dumb. He, you know what? He'll aid Iran. He'll have an alliance, but he's not going to help an Islamic regime to his immediate south go nuclear. That'd be crazy, because you never know how that could go. The Ayatollahs might get an itch to, target other infidels beyond Israel, and I'm sure they would. That's certainly on the table for them if they get the bomb, God forbid. He wouldn't have done that. Now the game has completely changed since the Ukraine invasion. He needs friends. He needs allies. And I believe that Russia very well may be willing, if they're not already, to assist Iran with its nuclear program. And we talk about the nuclear, that's how strong the relationship has become. And before the Ukraine war, I'd say, wow, that's like a one-way street, that relationship. Iran needs Russia more than Russia needs Iran. I wouldn't say that now. Not only militarily, where Russia's relying on Iran to replenish its armaments, but in the diplomatic realm. Iran has Russia's back at the UN, diplomatic bodies, time and time again. So Russian nuclear assistance to the Iranian regime is not outside the realm of possibility. And right now, there are rumblings in the region that those close to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei are telling him, hey, look, we might need to break out here. We hear every day practically how close they are to the bomb. Some here on the channel have said, this is like the boy who cried wolf. You keep saying they're getting the bomb, and they never do. Well, there's the difference between having the bomb and being very close to having the bomb, obviously. But what we're talking about is the breakout. They could have the bomb if they so choose. The reason they haven't acquired it yet is because they're probably afraid Israel is going to strike, the world's going to condemn, etc., or at least they were concerned about that. If they say, okay, you know what, now's the time, let's do it. They're going to try to do it eventually. It's been compared to the Cuban Missile Crisis in slow motion, the Iran nuclear crisis. So they're not developing these reactors and hardening them underground for their health. They want the bomb. They've held off so far. When they make the choice to do it, now's the time. It's a hop, skip, and a jump towards that nuclear breakout, towards having the bomb, towards you and I waking up one morning and Iran successfully tested a nuclear device. Then the world changes forever, unless Israel stops them. That's where we're at right now. Benjamin Netanyahu is essentially the leader of what's left of the free world, because Western leaders don't have the stomach or the backbone to counter this Iran threat. Even as Israel's landing knockout blows, the Biden administration, for instance, the Biden-Harris administration is trying to rein Israel in and let Iran off the hook and its proxies off the hook to lick their wounds and fight another day. It's madness. Hopefully Netanyahu doesn't listen. But Iran now, it seems to make a lot of sense for them. The ring of fire strategy is crumbling. They're now exposed. It might make a lot of sense right now, and the Supreme Leader's hearing this, to now do the last sprint to the finish line, the nuclear finish line, and develop the bomb. It's all on the table right now. Folks, you live in prophetic times, in case you were wondering. Bible times, perilous times, but God is on the throne. Always has been, always will be. As believers, as a follower of Jesus, as someone who knows the Bible, I can and believes the Bible. Key point there. I can observe everything going on. I can follow it very closely. And I can have, when it seems the world is collapsing around us, I can still have that peace that surpasses all understanding because I have faith in Almighty God. And I know He will never leave us or forsake us. He will work all things together for the good. Another key point here, of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. So stay encouraged, keep the faith, take heart. Don't be dismayed by this. It has to happen. And again, God is in control. Faith, family, freedom. Live on those 3 F's, and we'll get through this storm together, right? Shoulder to shoulder. Hey, if you like what you're watching here on YouTube, you like what you're hearing, of course, subscribe. But also, we've got a nightly show, folks. Reminder on TBN. It's the world's largest Christian television network. Stakelbeck Tonight. We just launched in March. It airs every weeknight, Monday through Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch tonight. Pastor Greg Laurie is with me with some prophetic insights. Really, really good stuff. But if you like the YouTube channel, look, we can't always on live streams have the bells and whistles, the B-roll, the maps, the graphics that we want on TV. Hey, we've got a great set, great studio, great production team, everything you want. You're not here for the bells and whistles. Ultimately, I know you're here for the content, but I think you'll love the show. So check it out. You can also catch clips from the Stakelbeck Tonight show on our second YouTube channel. Yeah, that's right. We have another YouTube channel as well, at Stakelbeck Tonight. That's at Stakelbeck Tonight. Be sure to subscribe there as well. And if anything happens this weekend, we're coming to you. No worries about that. So keep it right here. Until then, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.